a pale horse, and on that horse was a pale rider, and his name was Death, and with him hell followed. Or, I am become Death, the destroyer of worlds. My name is Matt Biller, and this is Fans Be Like, Game of Thrones edition, episode 5, for the final season. You ever heard the phrase, all hell breaking loose? Last night on Game of Thrones, we saw the slow but sure unraveling of Daenerys Targaryen's sanity. This is really hard to talk about because if you saw it, and I'm sure if you're watching this recap you did, it's extremely difficult to put into words what we saw, but we'll try anyway. We open up with Lord Varys inside of his chambers writing about the true heir to the Iron Throne, Jon Snow, otherwise known as Aegon Targaryen. And his little bird, his little spy, reports to him and says, the queen will not take food, she will not take any visitors, and it's getting bad. And Varys says, okay, well, keep trying, and he keeps writing. Well, I think he understands that Daenerys' soldiers are watching him and his time is short. And matter of fact, the Red Lady Melisandre promised him, no, you're going to die in this strange country of Westeros. And Daenerys also promised him in season 7, if you ever conspire behind my back, I will burn you alive. If anything, a Targaryen is true to their word. Lord Varys heard the march of soldiers outside his hallway. He burned the last scroll he was writing. Keep in mind, many scrolls probably went out already to the Seven Kingdoms. So the secret is no longer a secret. It is now news that the true heir to the Iron Throne is Jon Snow, or Aegon Targaryen, and that Queen Daenerys is nothing but a pretender. Oh my God. So hard to say these things. I loved her so much. So Varys meets his maker. He is brought to his own execution. And as he is brought before Daenerys, Tyrion reaches over and puts his hand on him and says, "It was me. You know, it was him that gave him up." But Varys has always been a man who is willing to do anything and to die for the people, not the rulers, but for the people. So he doesn't even blame Tyrion. He's like, dude, I get it, and goodbye, my old friend. And in one of many staggering shots in that episode, as Daenerys condemns him to die, Drogon, comes from behind her, but in complete darkness. So as the dragon emerges, more and more of his features become visible, and he just sort of gets a little closer. It's really kind of scary. It's a vulgar display of power, if you will. And of course, she says Dracarys, and well, you can guess what happens next. The show gives him a lot of dignity. We do not see Lord Varys suffering. We don't see him writhing. We don't even hear him screaming. We just see the fire passing across the camera and the reaction of the people around that tell the story. That's the easy part of this episode. To make a long story short, Tyrion's doing his best to preserve the city, the tens of thousands of innocent people. He knows that claret is imminent, that Daenerys is planning to siege the entire city with Drogon and whatever armies that she has. Grey Worm has turned into a blinded with rage, mindless bulldog, and he'll do whatever she says. He's full charge ahead. And Tyrion convinces her, says, look, if you can find a way for the tide to turn, if you can preserve the city, if the war is lost for Cersei, the people will abandon her. At that point, we will ring the bells of King's Landing and we'll know it's over. And pull back your forces at that point, everything will be okay. in which Daenerys answers him, "We caught your brother Jaime Lannister trying to cross the gates, and we have him now," which changes the board immediately for Tyrion. So before this siege can happen, which is going to happen at daybreak at the earliest, Tyrion visits Jaime inside of his tent where he's held prisoner, and it's a very, very beautiful, touching moment. Tyrion gets to repay what Jaime did for him by releasing him from the Red Keep. Tyrion releases Jaime and says, "I've arranged for a boat to be at the bottom of a hidden beach in King's Landing. Take these stairs, go all the way down, find Brienne, and go and just make a better life." I think he's talking about Brienne. I don't know if he's talking about Cersei. I don't know, whatever. Just take the one you love and get on a boat and skedaddle. So Jaime goes off to do whatever he's going to do. We don't know. Is he going to follow Tyrion's advice? Is he going to go to the Red Keep and kill Cersei? Is he going to fight with Cersei? Is he going to? We don't know. Daybreak happens, and I guess I'll paint with broad strokes. Daenerys lays waste to the Greyjoy, the Iron Fleet. Those boats are kindling. This time she's not ambushed. This time they're not waiting for her. There's not a surprise attack. This time she knows the placement of where the fleet is. She knows the placement of the scorpions, the spear weapons on top of the towers at King's Landing, and her and Drogon destroy. They just lay waste to the fleet, to the defenses, to the armies. I mean, once the Golden Company, for everything that they were supposed to be, the sellswords that were bought off and brought over to the Red Keep, they don't get to swing one sword. The entire Golden Company is destroyed by Drogon and by a surprise attack from Daenerys from inside. She comes swooping in from inside King's Landing and just blows the gates outward as opposed to inward, and which Jon Snow and his armies rush inside, and they meet up with the King's Landing soldiers, and they're all ready to go. It's a big square off. It reminded me of Gangs of New York when the natives are facing off against the dead rabbits, and it's the soldiers, the soldiers of the Red Keep. They hear Drogon up above. They hear him just devastating, the tower, the defenses, and everything like that. And you can see the real fear creeping into their eyes, and they're like, "We don't want to fight for Cersei. We're not going to die in Dragonfire today because of this. No way." They drop their swords. Lannister soldiers surrendering for the first time in the history of Game of Thrones. They drop their swords, and it's over. They know it's over. Tyrion knows it's over. The bells ring. The tide is turned. Even Cersei from her balcony with Qyburn in the mountain, she can see, she knows she's lost. There's no defense. She has nothing to mount. She has nothing to do but go back to the Iron Throne and cry, or find some safe place to just sort of be before the inevitable incursion takes her out. Daenerys is flying up above in the sky, triumphant. And then she sees the Red Keep ahead. And then everything that could have gone wrong, that has gone wrong since she came to Westeros, culminates in her betrayals, her jealousy, the fact that she is ruling with fear and not being loved, not being respected, and there's no one in King's Landing to liberate. These are peasants. These are people that have served Cersei, served under her. They haven't overthrown her. What good are they? And Daenerys Targaryen becomes the Mad Queen in one instant. And as the bells chime through the city, she kills everyone. She rides Drogon and strafes the city left and right, burning building after building, after person, after group, after family, after house, after hovel, the entire city of King's Landing, along with the innocent people, the righteous and the unrighteous alike, are consumed in the holy fire. It is a relentless, unforgiving, unflinching take of the show has never showed such utter devastation ever, or like lack of humanity, basically. It was soul crushing to watch this happen. Jon Snow is watching from the ground. He doesn't understand why this is happening. Tyrion is watching. He doesn't understand why this is happening. Daenerys is taking every single thing she's gone through, from her horrible, betraying, abusive brother to the slave masters of Meereen and Astapor and Yunkai, and the thievery of her dragons and her near rapes. And she's taking everything out on King's Landing. And there's no road back for her. She is now the Mad Queen. She is now the villain. Only this show, in its infinite genius, can make me actually feel sorry for Cersei Lannister. She knows she's lost. She knows she's beaten. And she beats a hasty retreat out of the Red Keep. But by then, it doesn't matter. The entire city is burning. Men, women, and children are going up in flames, showing that the prophecy of her wandering through the throne room with snow falling from the sky was never snow. It was ash. She was always destined to commit this heinous act of genocide. Meanwhile, the Hound and Arya they've made their way into King's Landing with their own agendas. Of course, Arya still thinks she's going to sneak up and kill Cersei. They make it into the Red Keep, which is crumbling down all around them. And the Hound finally says, girl, go home. Go back to Winterfell. If you let revenge consume your entire life, it's going to turn you into something hateful and ugly like me. And he goes off because he's got a score to settle, and it's a score he's been wanting to settle for his whole life, because it's fucking Clegane Bowl, kids. You know what I mean? It's time for the Hound and the Mountain to square off. So Arya leaves. She turns around and realizes she doesn't want to be what the Hound is, but she does say, she says, Sandor. And he turns around, and I almost died right there, because that's the most personal moment between those two. And she says, thank you. And he nods to her and goes off to meet his destiny, and Arya goes off. And yes, while there's horrible devastation reigning all around us and characters are plummeting left and right into their own personal hells, we get a badass Clegane Bowl. I'm not going to lie. The Hound faces off with the Mountain. Qyburn tries to interfere, and the Mountain promptly empties his brains out for him, which is good, because that guy was a piece of shit. And Cersei just kind of looks at both of them and just lifts up her skirts, and I'm just going to go down here now. So swords are drawn. They fight. It's a pretty good fight. It's on the steps leading up to the throne room, while the whole castle's collapsing all around them. And there's fire and dust and smoke, and they square off, and it's a mad-ass sword fight, strength versus strength. The Mountain loses his helmet at one point, gets a real nice Jason Voorhees reveal. And the Hound tries to kill him. He stabs him many times, and he even guts him at one point. He rams his sword all the way through, and the Mountain just kind of starts to pull the sword out. And I think that's when the Hound realizes, he starts laughing at the fact that his brother's immortal. He goes, the only way we're going to die is we die together. So the Hound just charges him and grabs him in this huge embrace and blasts him through the wall, and they both go plummeting into basically Dante's Inferno. It was a badass exit for my favorite character on the show. Rest in peace to Sandor Clegane, the Hound. It was dope. Good for him. And there's really not a lot of celebration to be had. Jaime's about to meet up with Cersei on that hidden beach when Euron Greyjoy shows up. He somehow survived the destruction of his fleet. He wants his glory. He's going to do what he can. Him and Jaime get into a huge fight, sword fight. Jaime bests him, but not after succumbing to some bad wounds. And as he leaves Euron Greyjoy dying in the water and the rocks, Euron says, I'm the man who killed Jaime Lannister, which isn't true. He would have lived through those wounds eventually. Jaime finds Cersei below where they keep the skulls of the dragons. He finds her there, and he's about to lead her towards escape. And there's no escape. The tunnel that they were going to use to leave is now completely covered and piled up with rubble. And as Drogon and Daenerys rage above, the castle keeps falling. She turns the Red Keep into a tower of Legos, and Cersei and Jaime know they're dead, and all she is doing is praying, begging to live. I would just want to. I don't want to die. I don't want my baby to die. Please do something. Has to be done. And this is where you actually feel for her, because her arrogance was so strong. Now, keep in mind, she brought this onto herself when she did behead Missandei, overplaying her hand, thinking that she was untouchable. But when Missandei said Dracarys before losing her head, that was it. That was it. That was the end of King's Landing. We just didn't know it yet. So as the castle's crumbling down around, it takes out Cersei and Jaime as they're both embracing. And he says, just look at me. We're the only people in the world. Nothing else matters but us. And that's really all she ever wanted, and all she ever wanted for him to believe. And he gives her what she needs to hear in their dying moments. So Arya is doing a mad dash escape out of the Red Keep, out of King's Landing. She's trying to pick up innocents as much as she can, but it's just not happening. There's rubble and death and danger falling all around her. She falls a few times, and we think she might almost be dead, but what do we say to the god of death, Arya Stark? And once everything finally calms down, and I mean, it takes a long time for things to calm down. This is an extermination on a grand epic scale. When I saw the director of this episode, it said directed by Miguel Sapochnik, I was like, oh shit, that's the guy they get for the huge widescreen visuals, the insane battles, the completely, the game-changing events. They get Miguel to direct those episodes because they're so insane. So I knew this one was going to have some heavy metal to it. I just didn't know. I mean, me and my viewing party, we just did not know it was going to go this bad, this fast. So the smoke clears. Arya finds a white horse in the distance, and she knows it's time to go. She rides out of King's Landing to her destiny. And her destiny, I believe, is to close Green Eyes forever. The Green Eyes of Daenerys Stormborn. It was absolutely galvanizing, guys. It was, I mean, and of course I went on the internet and I looked at a note on critics. There are so many whiny Monday morning bullshit spewing complainers about this season. Oh, it's so rushed. It doesn't look good. The character arcs, they forgot this storyline. They forgot that storyline. Look, there's a coffee cup. He didn't pet Ghost. Fuck you. That's all I have to say. I'm really sick of it. This season for me has been power punch after power punch. My viewing parties have grown more and more insane, with more and more cheering and more heartfelt moments than we've ever had on the show. I thought Cersei blowing up the Sept of Baelor was insane. This was balls to the walls crazy, and it was amazing. It was awesome. It was the beautiful death. I mean, we were having an amazing time watching it. It's visceral. It was powerful. It hit you. It resonated. You know, it's not the marvelous Mrs. Maisel, okay? It's Game of fucking Thrones. So, I frankly don't really care about fan theories anymore. I care about comments, ideas, and thoughts. What do you guys think is going to happen next week? We have one episode left. We are down to the final episode of Game of Thrones that we are ever going to have. The Night King and the Undead have been vanquished. The Lannisters' house extermination is all but assured, with only Tyrion Lannister being the only surviving lion. Davos Seaworth is still alive. We still have Daenerys, Jon Snow, Gendry, and Arya, and Sansa. Sansa is going to take a shellacking for what the hell she did by spreading these secrets around. Daenerys is not going to forget that. I fear for the little bird's life at this point. And I know a lot of people haven't thought about this since the death of Littlefinger, but that soft boy Robin Arryn is still alive. He's still up there in the Eyrie doing God knows what, missing how many arrows, but he's still a player in the game. And I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do with him, if anything. All I know is that this unbelievable episode of Exquisite Death was memorable and will go down in history as probably the most brutal Game of Thrones has been since the Red Wedding. Anyways, that's what I think. I want to know what you guys think. Also, a special note, if you guys are also tired of the whiny, mealy-mouthed complainers, people not getting their fan theories met, oh, there were no baby dragons flying from the sky, even though I thought that was going to happen too. Let me know. Let me know if you're actually enjoying Season 8, if you are saluting the unbelievable work that the people have put into it, basically making us 6 mini movies. I think the creators of Game of Thrones and the writers and the directors deserve a little less Dracarys and a little more gratitude. Anyways, I am Matt Biller. Thank you guys. I really, really hope you guys enjoyed this episode entitled Quasimodo. And we will see you next week for the final edition of Fans Be Like Game of Thrones. I'm out.